I'm going to mute out here for a minute just to check the audio when it starts coming through, just so you've got a heads up. Say something, Samrat.
We are now, okay. So we are now live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the official office hours of the Baseline Protocol. I'm welcoming you once again on Wednesday as John is on vacation again. And I've sort of started enjoying also welcoming baseliners as well as community members who come on Zoom call. Thank you so much, all of you, for making it. I know we are now competing with another very important debate, which is happening right at this hour. But we will try and sustain, and that's our commitment to baseline. So we start with saying hi to all the baseliners on YouTube who just joined us, as well as people who are here, and people who are watching us on YouTube. Please smash the subscribe button and also the bell icon. I've started saying that now in the beginning, sort of getting to learn this. So we go around saying hi. Hey, Nick, Mark,
On
Jack.
this channel, the B word is baseline.
Oh yeah, the B word is baseline. Yeah. That should be our tagline for today. So I don't have the music yet, so we cannot play the music, but we can still shake our heads.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3,
Baseline.
go.
Baseline.
Baseline.
Baseline. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we are. So this was, I think, a rather subtle week for baseline. I do not see too much activity
You mentioned it in passing, but I just want to make sure the audience knows, because John has been such a pillar, the cornerstone of this particular show, this session, that everybody deserves a little rest, a little break, right?
Absolutely.
No matter what you do, whether you're working out or exercising or even work projects, right? You need to give yourself time to reset and your brain a chance to reset. And gratefully, John has done it this week. I don't know if it's grateful for us. I'm still working. But so, and I'm grateful to Samrat and everyone else for joining today to help continue on the tradition of consecutive baseline office hours.
Absolutely. The show must go on.
The show goes on.
Yeah, the show goes on. Exactly. And it's nice to see, the Marks, the Ties, the Jacks, and all. I hate to call you guys the usual suspects, but you really are some of our staunchest supporters, and thank you for that. I know personally I'm appreciative, John's appreciative, the whole community is appreciative. So thanks, appreciate it.
And although a bit of a limited audience today, we continue to see the community grow. More organizations join the baseline community, which is exactly what we're striving for.
And these sessions are recorded and posted for posterity, and we actually find that we get a pretty significant post-show replays, right? So, we didn't want to have a gap in the action, so to speak. So, I know there's a number of things to just socialize about more than anything else. One of the big things was a recent announcement, Jack, that you made on your blog. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to have announced this morning ETH Atlanta is back. Provide had previously soft launched it in 2018. It was in person. And then in 2020, it was back for a virtual one. And both were really successful. And we're incredibly excited to be doing it again, October 1st, Friday, through October 3rd, Sunday, concluding with the, it'll be a Ethereum hackathon and executive summit. And on Friday, it'll conclude with the award winners and the judging of the hackathon. So,
one of the cool things about ETH Atlanta, Jack, is it's always had a big focus on enterprise blockchain. And now with, enterprise DeFi becoming a thing, right? It's nice to see that ETH Atlanta is also kind of wrapping the arms around that, right? So If you're into enterprise blockchain or enterprise DeFi, that first week of October, you should be in Atlanta for sure. You're going to meet many of the luminaries. John will be there. Kyle will be there. I'll probably be there, although I don't consider myself a luminary. Maybe I'll auction off cutting my hair or something. I don't know. It could be kind of silly. But nonetheless, more importantly, you'll be with a large group of like-minded individuals focused on the technology and participating in the hackathon and getting hands-on and understanding how all these parts work, and understanding how you can leverage them yourself. So very exciting. Sorry, Jack, I got on a soapbox.
No, it's perfect, Nick. Well said. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. With I was just mentioning all the organizations that are working within the ecosystem and continuously growing within the baseline community. And we're really excited to have a good forum in which that can be showcased, as well as other work relative to the enterprise blockchain space.
How do people sign up,
Exciting.
Jack?
Yeah, we have a registration live. You can find it on our Twitter as well as in our blog. We'll make sure to post it in the thing.
Post
Jack,
it on YouTube.
You posted it in the baseline Slack, which was great. So thank you for that. We'll make sure to get it on YouTube as well.
And of course, if you check in on this show, we'll keep mentioning it on this show every week for at least through the beginning of October. So
leading up to October.
Again, including companies like Microsoft, Splunk, ServiceNow, Consensus, of course, Coke One North America. We really look forward to having a keynote with Andre from Coke to showcase all the work that's ongoing. And a bunch of other features within the baseline protocol community. Well, Jack from Unibright, the whole Unibright team.
Are we going to actually meet Jack in person? Oh my God, that's going to be awesome.
I hope so. If there are no travel restrictions, I will be there.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Everybody get vaccinated. Make sure you're clear to travel.
Oh yeah.
Stay isolated. Bring your masks. All that good stuff.
Yeah, that is the mandatory stuff. So this is something very exciting. Yeah.
Samrat, real quick, Nick, you had made that mention of like the enterprise DeFi side, and as you had mentioned, we continue to see this momentum ongoing from what we see, the synchronization and the business process automation that occurs within these baselining processes. We see the output of these turning into what becomes this enterprise DeFi liquidity. And so we're really excited to showcase not only all the enterprise blockchain work, but have kind of that executive summit and forum for the discussion on the DeFi side as well. So we're certainly welcoming participants from that side of the house, and really look forward to showcasing that.
Yeah, baseline goes a long way toward making your processes better, making sure the data that gets generated by those processes and the artifacts that get generated from those processes are high quality, validated, verified, assured. Exactly. So, as you start to look at the different processes that are generating some of these assets, whether it's a title or an invoice or whatever, right? A proof of acceptance or, a service contract or, even a receipt potentially, making sure all of that information is verified just means that the digital representation of that has a much higher value in terms of the quality of the data, the reliability of the information, the auditability, and all of that. So very exciting times. And it's going to be exciting to be a part of it. Look forward to it.
Yeah. I keep congratulating everybody who's jumped on board the baseline community, because they are ahead of time. It will be like time travel for them when they see these products coming to life. So, very exciting announcement there, Jack. So much, thank you so much for sharing it. And we really look forward to Atlanta. I don't know what the travel restrictions are going to be like. We are heading towards a bad time, but let's see if at all possible. I'll also try to be there. With that, I think there are these interesting conversations which keep coming out of the community. One of the members who recently joined from the India community, they were asking me a question that, which is the preferred blockchain platform? I mean, that's something which is open to discussion for the forum. And I thought of asking that question this time, but then of course, turns out that we have a low attendance today. So that's also something I think, there has to be a way that we start saying that, these are the platforms which go very well with us,
So,
versus the ones which do not.
yeah, well, Baseline itself is platform agnostic, right? You can do it on
Yeah.
Fabric, you can do it on Ethereum, you could do it on,
Yeah.
as John likes to say, an Arduino in your
Yeah.
closet, right? What you need to do is you need to first seek to understand why you're doing it to begin with, right?
Yeah.
If you're baselining to create another data silo,
Hmm.
probably not the right reason for baselining.
Yeah.
Just, like we used to say in the early days of blockchain, if you're trying to use blockchain to replace your database, probably not the best use of blockchain, especially when the database
Absolutely.
you have is working so well.
Absolutely.
I say that as an old Oracle guy. But my point is that, when you start to look at why you're baselining, being able to coordinate multiple parties, being able to have access to the information for long periods of time, independent of the availability of those parties, you need a mainnet. You need something that's always on, right? And currently, Ethereum is the best candidate for that, right?
Yeah.
That's not to say at a future point in time it might be something else, right? A blockchain to be named later, if you will. But that's the other good thing is that you're not locked in either, right?
You're not logged in. Yeah, that's a big plus.
Yeah.
That's a big plus. And then there's also the whole chat about interoperability, etc. You don't have to worry about it. And then the other thing which that also came up in our community discussion, where there has to be a litmus test, something like a test which we pass through these processes, as you said, Nick, that we should just not baseline for the heck of it. We have to find real value in a process. Why are we really baselining it? So I think
I think a lot of that, and I think there's a deeper value within the actual synchronization and the automation that's ongoing throughout these processes, and the risk that can be mitigated throughout it. The disputes that can be reduced in these type of processes. But then furthermore, again, it goes into the process that we were just talking about, the opportunity to turn these into tokenizable, verifiable assets that we can turn into enterprise DeFi.
I use a machine metaphor when I like to talk about this, right? Many businesses have been built up over time. They have proven processes. They're well documented. They've been conducting business for 20, 40, sometimes hundreds of years, right? And effectively what they have is a machine, and the gears of the machine are intertwined. And the machine has been around for so long that the technology in those gears might be wood axles and stone gears, right? But they work, and they work pretty well, right? However, there is friction, there is inefficiencies, right? The gears don't perfectly mesh. Maybe the stone doesn't turn very well or what have you. And the baseline protocol allows you to modernize that infrastructure so that your processes get more efficient. They get much easier to validate and audit and all of that, much more verified, if you will. And at the same time, by doing that, it allows you to squeeze cost out of the system. And the cost often manifests itself as other friction, right? Having to call somebody to verify an amount, or send an email and wait, or any of those kinds of things, right? So it allows you to take and ultimately make the machine much more efficient, right? Now, instead of having stone gears with wood axles, you've got carbon fiber axles and metal gears that are machined together and all of that. And then you take those assets and the materials, the being produced by these processes, and you introduce DeFi, and it's like pouring oil into the gears, so that not only are they operating more efficiently, but there's less friction and more. Anyway, I'll get off my metaphorical soapbox.
No, that's very well said. And with those savings, what can be produced is those savings can be attributed to financing. Financiers can then come into the equation, and those savings can then be attributed to financing. And by bringing that financing into the equation, you can then incentivize the participants in a different way. So what we're finding are these kind of unique ways to align financial interests amongst the actual participants within these ecosystems. And as we continue to work with these different customers, we're finding more and more that they're seeing opportunities to build services and new revenues on top of these different ways to incentivize their various participants through these different cost savings. So that's what actually really excites me, is the opportunity to kind of drive new really revenue and like new product and services on top of what we're enabling here. I see this in a multitude of different ways.
Yeah, squeezing cost out of the process, improving productivity, those kinds of things on the one hand. New financial models and incentives to incent organizations and individuals to work together in a better way, right? It's two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely.
Very valuable.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that a little bit more, currently, from a Coke perspective, we see it within the Kona. We have two different kind of buyers, if you will, or two different buyer incentives. One in which is keeping their payment terms and getting a 1% discount on that, keeping the net 30 or net 60 payment terms, or it is introducing a financier into the equation and being able to give them 6% on that and then securitize that for up to 180 days. And as a result of that, that participant, the bottler in that instance, is able to make more off of the overall process. The small participants, again, are able to get paid immediately, which really is a game changer for them. And Coke is able to stay as the ecosystem enabler and facilitate this value to their already existing ecosystem.
Absolutely.
I think
time value of money is everything in a business.
Yes.
So we are actually helping people in that equation where they're calculating time value of money. The other thing is, very interestingly, earlier people used to be in silos. They had their own forts and they would just work inside. And now is the time that they come out and they start collaborating by baselining. So I think any process which has multiple actors, multiple writers, if you will, so multiple writers who are non-trusting parties. I think that's clearly important here. So non-trusting parties who are trying to work together, those kind of processes are ripe for baselining. I think they should be picked up first, and processes which span across industries and not just specialized processes. That ways would make a huge impact.
And in some instances, they can actually just span across an enterprise itself. And so you could be baselining different business units within an organization, which that in and itself is highly, highly valuable. With, there's such a deep goal to not only be able to centralize, find that single source of truth from a data perspective, you want to be able to do that from a financial modeling perspective, financial execution perspective. And this is a way in which we can help solidify that and make it a lot more detailed, if you will.
Especially think about mergers and acquisitions where a large company is absorbing a smaller company. Maybe they're not necessarily small in the sense of the word. They can't just rip and replace their systems. They have existing systems that have been in place that are running the business, and you don't want to undermine or cannibalize those because it's generating revenue or what have you. But being able to integrate those, again, that great internal use case for the baseline protocol right there.
We're seeing we've had multiple customer conversations right along those lines.
When I was at Oracle, I was there for a rather long period of time, participated in over 60 different M&A integrations, right? Sun, Siebel, PeopleSoft, millions of others, or hundreds of others, basically. And it was always very interesting when some of these companies would get acquired, and they'd be running Salesforce CRM, and Safra Katz in her wisdom would be like, turn that stuff off. And the salespeople would freak out. Of course, a data migration would happen, and they'd eventually get shut off. But there was a market impact on the productivity of the people that needed to use the system, simply in the retraining and retooling and the time and all of that, right? And that cost tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases, I'm sure, in terms of lost productivity. If you could mitigate that through an integration mechanism like the baseline protocol, the dollars are quite clear.
Nick, I'll throw another.
Go ahead, Jack.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that
done.
it's just funny that Nick mentioned that, because I just got off a call with someone from the accounts payable side of a corporate club integrate, and they use Oracle, and they recently, as in 4 years ago, had to do that big merger acquisition space. So it is, happening. And she said she remembers going through that, and seeing how difficult it was to really integrate the different systems. And Jack, what would you like to say?
No, that's a excellent point. I was just going to elaborate on that just a little bit. I'll throw another crazy one out. Being able to baseline the centralization of the data. You're trying to take this from multiple different data sources within a company, being able to actually baseline the output into the data warehouse, or whatever that may be within an organization. So we've started to see some interest around that as well, which is something else that was just really exciting.
There was my time at Oracle, many years I went to Club based on a lot of these large enterprise application integration deals, right? Where we're effectively selling more database and middleware to clients that already had probably more than they needed or more than they could swallow. But they needed more because they weren't licensed properly, and that was on-prem at the time. So it was good. But that will be interesting, Jack, to see as we get further along, especially with the Konas and the ServiceNows being two public examples, but there are many more kind of confidential examples that we're aware of underway, to see, the cost of infrastructure, right? It's arguably 75 to 100K for a stack of baseline software run for a year, right? And then, if you think about some of these large EAI systems, they would spend tens of millions, 20s of millions of dollars before they even process their first transaction, before they even knew if the integration really worked and achieved its goal.
Great point.
Right? So
great point.
The economics are just, it makes us so much more approachable than it used to be, right? It's, you no longer need a $10 million or a $20 million budget to make these integrations happen and see the value from them. You can do them with, $250,000 or $500,000 instead. It's really a game changer. Lowers the barrier of entry to many more enterprises that, in the past only these ones could take advantage.
I think on that point, I think it really kind of shifts what these enterprise blockchain initiatives are all about, and the ease of which they can actually work to execute these. We can be looking to baseline different workflows or a particular ecosystem within an organization relatively quickly. And so that's just something that we're really excited about from that perspective, just the ease of use of it.
And I know John is on vacation, but he'll probably listen to this. So it would be remiss if we didn't say, don't put data on a blockchain. A blockchain is not a database. Do not put data on a blockchain.
Keep it right there.
Keep it where it's safest.
Let's talk about tokens.
Or in your SQL Server database. Yeah.
I think while we're here, we need to also have a shout out to John, because and state that private enterprise blockchains are basically digital nudist colonies.
Yeah, it's
very interesting.
Yeah, we're walking people down the path of realizing that it's just a private nudist colony, I suppose.
Yeah. Not baseline. Blockchains are great, right? They're secure, they're transparent, they're decentralized. That transparent part means people can see your junk, right? So if you're on a public blockchain, everybody can see your junk. If you're on a private blockchain, only the people on that beach, the people you invited, can see your junk. So.
Yeah, interesting. No, so slightly going slightly back on the business model, the new kind of business model. Jack also spoke about it, securitization of invoices, for example.
Sure.
So I think that is something which, going back to my Deloitte days, when we used to talk to clients, a lot of times people were looking at, or any technology for that matter, when it comes, it's either saving time or saving space or speeding things up and stuff like that. So I think it was that time back in 2016, 17, we were trying to convince people, and people had innovation budgets to spend on blockchain. But after that, people started talking about, tell me how I can make money using this. And I think now we are in that phase
That's right.
where, where models which are enabled by baseline can go out in the market and create new revenue models. I think that is something truly which I enjoy, from a baseline perspective.
Yeah, as these paradigms shift, there's opportunity, right? If you remember back when cloud first became a thing, right?
Yeah.
Centralized data centers were all the rage. People were, collecting their email servers from underneath everybody's desk and putting it in a, their central data center so they could get economies of scale and better management and all of that. And then the cloud came along and you no longer had to build out your data center for capacity. You could burst to the cloud, and then people realized, well, you can just stay in the cloud. And now you've got effectively data centers running in the cloud, consuming time, money, and resources. Fortunately, the heating and cooling is generally taken care of by Google, Amazon, or Microsoft, your cloud provider. But it's still a cost of IT, right? And what Baseline does is it takes that one step further and abstracts the cost of IT all the way to the transaction level. So that you're, instead of paying for a collection of servers, you're paying for just the usage of the shared network. Now, of course, because of the scalability and the volumes and things like that, you're probably going to want a layer 2 thing to balance the internal cost versus the external cost and all of that. And we're still figuring that out and we're still learning. But ultimately, you're going to end up in a paradigm where much more of these systems are going to be operational cost as opposed to capital cost, right? You've seen that in cloud. You're going to see that continue over time, quite frankly, so that companies, and ultimately it lowers the barrier to entry so that, smaller companies could take advantage of more of these advanced concepts that in the past, only the biggest companies could take advantage of.
Absolutely. And people will go cross-border. Yeah, that's the opportunity. And cross-border is something, which again is a big challenge for small companies, especially. So I think that's also pretty empowering, where companies can take benefit of cross-border trade as well, where they just baseline the system. I think we are on the right path where we say that Microsoft Excel, one cell in Microsoft Excel can also be baseline to SAP, or what you guys did for Kona, Google Spreadsheets baseline to SAP. I think Nick, to your point, I think it's a great time for a small business to come on board and start building on this.
We're only the beginning of baselining, right? We're talking about data at this point, right? Once you start talking about baselining objects, whether it's a DocuSign document or a legal document or a customer object, or it'll be very interesting. Very interesting.
Indeed. Well, so I think we shared some really interesting perspectives today. Yeah, Mark, you were saying something.
I was going to say, definitely let's pay attention to, because we brought up cloud as far as how it was going to, drive the adoption and stuff, because a lot of us remember, when cloud really came on the scene, you had a lot of, CISOs and CIOs basically saying, you mean you want me to put all of my company's private data, all of my employee, whether it's going to be under HIPAA, ERISA, all of this, I'm going to take it out of my data center, which I have total control over, and put it in the cloud over my dead body. I guess there must be a lot of dead bodies now, because they realize that.
I could be really facetious and say they're all retired bodies now.
A lot of them are, yeah. So,
but some of us just learned, Mark. Some of us just learned the way.
Yeah. Well, some of us realized, hey, we're either unable or uninterested in retiring just yet. We still have to work. So, we might as well see if this has legs. So, but one of the things
when it blows up, we'll say, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think there were no real community initiatives around cloud like this one. I feel so, because I think it used to be the big people's game, and then there came CSA and they said, what, there is no real cloud security standard out there, so let's build one of our own. The biggies got together and they created CSA. So I think
and one thing Baseline really has a huge advantage on is when you have high security environments that are either constrained by data privacy laws such as HIPAA. Nick will tell you, I keep coming back to healthcare because every time you try and pitch any idea to a health IT application environment, they're going to say, we can't do anything with it. This is great. This is wonderful, but we are, hamstrung by HIPAA. We cannot, we have very specific protocols that we have to adhere to when it comes to data sharing and handoff. And, right now, this baseline eliminates that. You can say all of this sensitive data is going to remain within the system of record. This is a way of basically proving that, my data set matches yours, and doing it in a zero knowledge environment, which, is well within the bounds of, the data privacy laws.
Yeah.
And, but of course you have to find out what is the optimal entry point there? Where do you want to try and find someone, or some, application? I mean, they've looked at, healthcare provider credentialing, and they've looked at, it's trying to come in as far as, prior authorization and, just that reconciliation. But, adjudicating a healthcare claim takes 60 to 90 days under optimal conditions. And 20% of 20 cents of every healthcare dollar is lost through fraud, waste, and abuse. And the fraud, waste, and abuse all comes from exploiting this lag time between the reconciliation cycles. And so this is the one that we sit there, like, as soon as, we get V1 out and stuff, I mean, road showed this thing to everybody. I mean, because I actually mentioned, I was on a panel discussion for the Yale Alumni Health Network, and I got swarmed because they're like, what? Can we do this? Take my money, So, and I'm like, we will be able to do this. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, getting the excitement is not, it's really seeing it through.
Yeah, John, I just want to, Nick, I want to just layer on one point from an operational perspective. You were talking about how we'll see that a lot of this becomes very, kind of like an operational cost, just as like cloud did. And that's what we're seeking to do from like a provide perspective within the stack, is making the actual blockchain transaction cost just very seamless. Just a one line item on their bill, just as they would get any AWS cloud bill or something to that extent, and making it very seamless.
No need to hold crypto. No need to hold crypto. Just use the provide stack, and there are others that are coming, right? Infura has a transaction service that will allow you to pay in fiat for gas and all that kind of junk.
Yes.
As well. But it's
that
very
being
technical,
said,
right? Yeah.
That being said, if you want to pay in crypto, you can certainly do so as well. Yeah. And I personally think it's in organizations' best interest to consider putting crypto on their balance sheets, and I think it's going to become much more prevalent as we're seeing. So
preaching to the choir. Preaching to the choir. We just need to get the regulators to be okay with it, right? Yeah.
The main headwind that you'll fly into is much of the accounting and financial world still views crypto as some type of magical internet money. And you mentioned blockchain or cryptocurrency, and their eyes glaze over, and you have lost them as an audience.
Well,
but you get a couple more of these announcements. Apple,
you will.
See, it's the same analogy.
But if you're going to hold crypto in order to pay for a utility like computation, right? You don't want the volatility to be able to impact your ability to pay for your business continuity, right? Heaven forbid, say, for example, you're holding a bunch of Ether to pay for gas on the Ethereum mainnet, and then all of a sudden, the price of Ether dumps, and now you can't afford to process your accounts payable because you don't have enough Ether. That's not a good look for crypto, right? But there are alternatives, there are mechanisms, there are ways to mitigate that for sure, but you just need to do it with your eyes open.
Well, and in the process, what we do is create that forecastability, that predictability, and what their t-shirt size is, what they can expect on a monthly basis, their cost basis on that. Now, there's fluctuations in the market relative to crypto, but those are risks that organizations are likely going to be willing to take, because that or holding on to depreciating asset.
And in the meantime, there may be organizations such as Provide or others that are willing to effectively take that risk on your behalf for the appropriate risk reward, the premium, right? If a transaction is 50 cents and there could be variability in it, right, up to $1.50 or down to 25 cents, and I can forecast out I'm going to need 100 transactions, and I can pay for them today at 50 cents, independent of whether the cost is 25 cents or $1.25 when I get those transactions. Someone is taking that risk. So anyway, and they should get rewarded for it. That's the whole point, right? In an efficient market, that's where rewards are made. Right?
And I think a very interesting
It was efficient the last
on
year.
the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, it turned out to be efficient for all of us, most of us, I think. Yeah. A very interesting conversation just broke out when Ty mentioned stablecoins. So what about stablecoins? And of course, getting stablecoins on somebody's
I think they have a huge role to play. I think you'll see many different kinds of them, right? Whether they're CBDCs or algorithmics or tethers or what have you. They're going to have a huge role to play, and you may find them in many different, I hate to call them colors, but many different brands or flavors or uses even, and backing, right? It's very interesting to see Tether and all the press around Tether, right? Who started very simply, right? Give us $1, we'll give you 1 Tether, and we're going to maintain this pool of dollars to be able to liquidate these. And once the pool got big enough and the redemptions were low enough, they realized that they could generate better returns through commercial paper or treasuries. Still very, very safe instruments, right? Very little risk associated with that. But it's just not cash, because in many ways, because of inflation, cash goes stale, right? So anyway,
that's more about parking gas money. I think it was more towards that, having a holding, just to make sure that we pay for the baseliners. But I think it still makes sense if we can have a fiat gateway. I think all of that. I think there are many community members working on different aspects of the whole transaction. So to your point, Jack, I think it's a really exciting time to build on
interchangeability
on the crypto stack.
Fungibility. It's not all about NFTs. Sometimes they're fungible tokens as well.
And to the point of stablecoins, a stablecoin has basically just become a custody medium following a redemption. So somebody had a sell order at Bitcoin at 62,000, which is where it kind of topped out a couple of months ago, and they wanted to be able to capture that price. And so they went ahead and did the sell, and they just converted whatever BTC they had into stablecoin until they decided they could capture the gain. The transaction has been settled, and and all of the value or the money is sitting in stablecoin, awaiting to find out what you're going to do next.
Or they took their protocol coin and put it through Compound and generated, or Maker, and generated a loan back to themselves, so they didn't have to pay capital gains mark. And maybe they're using Axie or whatever that thing is called, so the loan is paying itself back over time. And all kinds of very interesting DeFi primitives, things out there. If you've got the time and the gas fees to cover it, right? Which is why gas goes up and gas goes down, because sometimes there's a lot of people using these very cool DeFi protocols. You got to fuel them. You got to keep them running.
And they want, and you give them high octane fuel so that they execute quicker.
That's right. Yep.
And let me bring the discussion back to baseline. So, quick one, Mark, will you be willing to show up on the India baseline show on Saturday?
Oh, it's late for him. It's like 8:30 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning on Saturday.
Yeah.
Tall order, Samrat. 8:30.
It's worth it. It is worth it. And Samrat, I apologize for missing last Saturday. I had every intention of joining. I just went to sleep a little early and forgot to hit my alarm button. So
okay, no worries at all.
Send me a thing. I can make it.
I will include all of you on the invite as well, because I've been selectively asking people to come because it's too early, absolutely too early on a Saturday. I was also apologizing to Lauren. She showed up last time. I think she made a friend
apology.
As well.
Yeah, I did make a friend. So it was funny because I got to talk to someone who works at the telecom industry, and just the day before, I had interviewed someone who works directly with the CEO of Samsung. And he told me about their invoicing solution and how they had managed it back in 2015, 2018. They also experienced a lot of these issues in in their suppliers not trusting the invoice and having multiple different systems, and they decided to ultimately create a one centralized authority. But the difficulty for Samsung, actually, which I found interesting, one of the things that that he mentioned, my colleague from South Korea, is he said dinosaurs cannot collect the revenue from the future. So I was wondering what this meant, and I asked him a bit more, and he wanted to say that certain people who come from these conservative, backgrounds in these traditional companies, they're a little bit more hesitant on something like a baseline protocol, because they do enjoy having the fact that a single individual is manually approving these invoices. So I just think that that's something that we will definitely need to consider in the future, on the idea of the human interaction versus the software part.
They want to have a throat to choke.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry,
But
Mark?
I'm a big believer.
They want a throat to choke should something go wrong. They want a head to throw onto the table if they should something. So that's why they still will insist on having an interaction.
One that's not their own.
Yeah.
Well, and furthermore, what you're after is those automated processes, trying to get to truly automated processes. That's what you're ultimately after there. Just as you're trying to do within like IoT and, on the edge from an analytics perspective, this is kind of that next step to tying that down and being able to actually see that end-to-end automation. We've talked about the previous customer POC that we had with Fraunhofer, in which we were doing supply chain automation from them, from the robotics piece. A robotics piece would go down, kick off a RFQ for it, would get then remediated by one of the actual suppliers there. And then it would kick that off that it was remediated, and that would be the entire baseline state right there, and really actually capturing kind of that whole end-to-end automation that they were after.
Definitely. And that's funny you mentioned that. Ty Colvert on the call today as well, he got me in contact with someone from the pharmaceutical side who deals with pharmaceuticals at Walgreens, and they use technically an automated invoicing solution. However, 1 to 5% of their scripts actually still need some manual process for ordering. And how crazy is that? That means that one person at Walgreens, they have to stay between 5 to 7 p.m. Every day. You're just having to pay 2 extra hours for an additional pharmacist to be at that Walgreens, so that they can manually approve or manually go through all of the pharmaceuticals that they have received.
Yeah.
No, I think the analogy is a similar thing. We discussed about cloud today. So the same thing that was happening with cloud, some time back, where CISOs were rejecting cloud, saying that we cannot put out all our information on the cloud and stuff like that. I think we're going to face similar friction, if not resistance, and we're going to face similar friction from CFOs this time with baselining of processes. I mean, that's what I feel. No, Jack?
I think once we start getting further down the path of baselining some of the financial modeling within organizations, that will start changing, and all the values that we've already mentioned thus far relative to the baselining process is as true as can be from like the financial strategy perspective. And so I actually don't. I foresee it gaining momentum very quickly, actually, especially as we see like the DeFi side continue to take prominence and understand like the financing opportunity to it. We'll see more CFOs kind of waking up to the opportunity to not only from an operationalization cost savings perspective, but then the actual opportunity to add services revenue on top of it, but then actually securitize. Literally, we've had conversations of baselining different financial business units across an enterprise. Quite often, that's a challenge in itself, is having coordinated financial modeling within one particular organization and feeling confident within that single source of truth. And I think that we're going to be able to see, going to be able to do that internal to organizations, and then add value on top of it with baselining processes from their suppliers and partner networks, which will then better cement and provide deeper accuracy to their financial modeling internal.
Absolutely. So I think this was a fantastic discussion. We're just on the top of the hour, so I'll sort of try and conclude. These are some excellent views. I think we discussed absolute business value of baseline today in a very simple language also. So I think we're going to bookmark this video and we're going to show to a lot of people who are on ramping, coming onto baseline, also need our support in convincing their organizations to move on board. I also see the YouTube viewers have increased over the duration of the show. So I'm glad that people are finding it interesting. So now we conclude. Any closing thoughts?
Thanks for hosting, Samrat. Jack,
thank you.
Ty, Lauren,
Great show,
great to see
Samrat.
everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks everyone. See you next week. And some of you, if you can make it, please come over on Saturday as well.
Sure.